Hello everyone, this is Rob, and I wanted to talk today about grid based quilt patterns. I posted this block last Friday with our quote, and as I said, I'm going to post a new block every week with my quote to give you some pattern designs, but I wanted to explain the grid. Because the first question was, what size is this block? And my answer is, whatever size you want to make it, because it's based in a grid. And so, this is the one that I posted, which is 4 spool blocks in a block, a 4-patch. So, but we go to the individual spool block pattern, and the reason we're going to the individual is that you will notice this is a 9-patch. You have a half square triangle, a square, half square triangle, square, 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 half square triangle, square, half square triangle. A typical 9-patch. Your traditional 9-patch would be solid, 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 solid to make your Irish chain. But if you change these up, you can get so many patterns. But what I wanted to explain to you is based on the grid, these can be any size you want. You just have to be consistent. I work in 1-inch and 3-inch blocks. Many people use 2-inch blocks because that works with layer cakes and charm squares, and especially jelly rolls because they're 2.5 inches. And mini charms, and you get all the different sizes of pre-cuts. But if you make this 1-inch finished squares, this is basically a 9-patch, which makes a single block. So it takes 9 blocks to make a block. 1 inch, 2 inches, 3 inches. Times 3, which would be 3 inches, 3 by 3 square if you use a 1 inch. If you use a 2-inch finished block, which is a 2.5 inch strip of fabric, 2 inches, 4, 6 inch. So this would be a 6-inch finished block. If you did the same block in 3-inch, 3, 6, 9 inches. So then you'll have a 9-inch square finished. And you could even use 5 inches, 5, 10, 15. You can use whatever size. That choice is yours. But the block gives you the pattern. And so we go back to, and you hear people talking about this. So if you do this in 2 inches, so this is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So this block, if you're using 2-inch blocks, would be 12 inches. If you're using 3 inches, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. It would be an 18-inch finished block. And basically this is for this. So we call this a 4-patch, but it's a 9-patch in a 4-patch. Because remember, our initial block is a 9-patch. So this is how you work these grids. And these blocks can get way more complicated, and by adding more rows and more layers. And I have some samples for you. But always remember, work each block to each block to each block. That's as simple, all you have to do. It's that simple to quilt. So we go up, and now this is a 9-patch and a 4-patch, and I changed the colors so it's easier for you to see. See, this is a 9 patch, 9 patch, 9 patch. But then there are 4 of these, so that again is a 9 patch and a 4 patch. Just like this, but much more complicated. But it's going to be the same size overall. 1 inch, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 inch finished square. Or we're going to use 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 inch finished. Or we're going to use a 3 inch block, which is going to be 18. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. Simple as that. But when you start getting into these 9 patches in a 4 patch, or even bigger, you can start making very intricate stars and very intricate patterns and things like that using your basic blocks. A square, half square triangle, and of course you have quarter square triangles, but most people stick with square and half square triangles. It is amazing what you can do with those 2 blocks. And what you would do is make this 1 block at a time, and then sew together 1 block, and then make your 4 blocks and sew them together. And this is a design, I forget what this one is called. This is spools, by the way. And I'm thinking about making that one in red and white. But then we get even more complicated. Like I said, this is a 4 patch in a 4 patch in a 4 patch. It's 1 more layer. See, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we'd make a 4 patch, and then it would become a 4 patch, which you grow the size of your block. And again, you will notice how complicated this block is. It's still only individual squares and half square triangles. That's all this block is half square triangles and individual squares. So what you would do is make your first square, then make your half squares, then make another square, and you would lay these blocks out. And by doing this and being persistent with it, you can make almost any block. You can also design a block, because you can take a picture and put this grid on top of it. This is an 8x8 grid. This is a 6x6, which is 36. This is 8x8, which has, God, I just went blank, 64, I think, squares. And you can build these blocks, but what you can do is you can lay these grids over this and design your own blocks based on photographs you take of patterns, of fences, of things like wrought iron fences. Because if you break the grid down small enough, you'll pretty much get it into a square, half square triangle, and occasionally a quarter square triangle. We're not going to talk about curved piecing, but again, an example. A drunkard's path is a 4 patch with curved pieces instead of half square triangles. And this one is the one I'm currently making with 1 inch blocks. And this block is this is a 9 patch in a 9 patch. And this again is a 9 patch in a 9 patch. This here is technically the same block. It's just the squares are moved around with the solid. But this block here, which is 9 patches in a 9 patch, which would be 81 squares. So these blocks I'm finishing at 1 inch are 9 inches. If you finished them at 2 inches, they would be an 18-inch finished block. And I actually thought about making this block in half inch finished, because there's a secondary pattern to this block once you get it up. And by even using 1 inch, I can only do 3, 4, maybe 5 rows across or columns across, or the quilt starts getting way too big. So that is one of the things. But we go back to, and then we were talking about my Barbara Brackman's of Encyclopedia. And the reason I wanted to show you, that's where all my blocks are coming from that I'm posting to you. But if we open this book up, this is called Encyclopedia of Pieced Quilt Patterns. This is the 3rd edition. I also have the 2nd edition by Barbara Brackman. There's almost 5,000 copyright-free old blocks. And this whole thing, an AccuQuilt system works on this. You cut your half square triangles, you cut your squares, you cut your quarter square triangles, you cut whatever. The Martelli templates, same thing. You have your squares, your half square triangles, etc. And we can open this book up and we can go, this is all the, here we go. We have pattern category, miscellaneous subject matter. Okay, here we go, squares and rectangles. And here's a 4-patch and a 4-patch, very traditional. All these are pretty much 4 patches and a 4-patch. But when you look over here, it says 4-patch, came from Hall. I can look that up. But it also was published in Checkerboard, Guchin, I forget what LAC is, but that was an old publication. But see, here we get down here, 1107, which is this one. They call that the Red Cross. And this was published in the Kansas City Star in 1934. But again, this is a 9-patch and a 4-patch. And you get the basic layout here. And the 2nd edition only had these black and white versions. It didn't have the color, which, let me tell you, the color really helps you understand the intent of the block. Like this 1105 is called the Carrie Nation Quilt, came out in the Kansas City Star in 1940. Look at those beautiful blocks. 4-patch and a 4-patch. And you can build these, but we can keep going up. This is 36 squares like this one. And these are 4-patch, 4-patch, 4-patch. So this would be a 4-patch and a 9-patch. Or is it not? Or it can be a 4-patch and a 9-patch, or it can also be a 9-patch and a 4-patch. Whichever way you choose to work. And you hear me discussing, because here's like Jacob's Ladder, which is 36, which came out in the Bureau of Farmers. And I used to live in the farm country, so I remember the Farm Bureau. But came out in 1930 was the first time this was published. And it was also called Road to California, and it came out in Carper's Weekly in 1930 as well. And again, you will see it's a a 4-patch, 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 and a 9-patch. And you can build your distinct patterns with this. And then you can use rectangles. It's all the different things. 1158 is Unnamed Woman's Circle, 1963. And it was called the Flower Gardens Path in QNM number 17, using flowering garden prints. This one right here. But we go through, here's diamonds in a 4-patch, which again are 4 patches, in 4 patches, in 4 patches, in 4 patches. But I hope you understand what I'm saying is, you look at these and you think this block is very complicated, but then you look at the 4-patch or the 4-patch and it doesn't become that complicated. So you always break it down, and 90% of your blocks will break down into a 4-patch or a 9-patch. Somehow. This is with pinwheels. 4-patch. See, here we have gotten getting into the curves, but it's called 4 patches with curves. They're still based on the same pattern. The only difference is this is blocks based on the shoe fly block, which is a really old block. Then we have asymmetrical blocks, maple leaves, oak leaves. This is autumn leaf. 1740 this is the maple leaf. And then this one is called like the Rolling Stone. And these are all based on equal 9 patches. And we go through here, and like I said, there are almost 5,000 blocks in this book. 2047, this one was nameless, came from Clara Stone. And I kind of like that block. But you have Temple Court, Uncle Sam's Hourglass, and see, some of these are using quarter square triangles. But we can go through here and we have all these blocks that we can work on. Miscellaneous 9X blocks. These are all 9 patches that are done in an X. And by doing this, they all break down. These are 9 patches. These are 3-patch patterns. See, you have your 3 different patches, but they all break down and makes them easy. Now here we get into intersecting curves and things like that. But then you also have your star patterns. They're calling this one the glittering star. I like this one here. 3742. The Lincoln quilt came from Ann Orr. But all these are free, copyright free. You can use these patterns. You can use them however you want. But then in the back, we get into, here's whole cloth top designs. But then we get into the back and you have your index of quilt blocks. And you can look up one, like Pepper and Salt Shakers 2516 is page 38. So if we're looking for that block, we go to page 38. Here we go. And 25. I'm sorry, it's 251B. I misread it, but 251B is this one, and that one's called Pepper and Salt Shakers. Or we can go back here and we can look up a real popular one is always the Star of Bethlehem. Or, I know, Tree of Life. People love the Tree of Life, but very few people make it. Here's Tree of Paradise. Okay. Tree of Life. We have a whole bunch of these. They're on 91, 92. A bunch of them are on 91, 92, and 93. 91. Page 91. This is definitely on my bucket list, is to make a Tree of Life. But when you see me come out with these patterns, I usually get them out of this book. 814. Okay, this is the Tree of Life on this page, but then we turn, we have a bunch of Tree of Life patterns. And from different sources. But you have all these different versions you can make. And again, they're all based on consistent squares, size, which are based on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 inch. When you're getting a bigger than 5 inch squares as your main block, you're getting really big blocks. But they usually run in 1, 2, or 3 inch squares. So you can make any block you want. And they're all here. That looks like a shoe fly, 1647. They call that the Crow's Nest from Kansas City Star, 1933. Now this one's a fun. That's 5440 Star, I think, with quarter square triangles. And this is 1643. So we go here. This is called Tangled Arrows, Aunt Katie, 1966. Here's the original shoe fly right here, 1645. LAC is 2, and they also call it Fence Row from the Kansas City Star, 1931. But they put it on point in the Kansas City Star because it says set on diagonal in a zigzag set. So that would be on point as we know it. But like I said, we can go through here. There's pots, there's baskets, there's sections for everything in here. Like I said, 5,000 blocks. Pattern category, wheels, other stars, diamond stars, miscellaneous. I paid, with import duty, I paid about €70 with postage for this book. I think it's well worth it. These are available from Electric Quilt. I'm assuming they'll be sold out really quickly, like the second edition and the first edition. They went like hotcakes. And especially with the color, because, man, that really, really helps. And but just to give you a case. But always remember to work on your quilt one block at a time. And you can make any size you want. and be consistent. So if you make these 2-inch squares, then these need to be 2-inch finished half square triangles. Simple as that. And if you're cutting a half square triangle, your square size needs to be 2 7/8. And many people will cut it to 3 and then trim it down 1/8 of an inch. Quarter square triangles, you add 1 1/4. So that, and I'll make another video about half square and quarter square triangles. And the reason I choose not to use some of the modern fancy methods because I don't like bias. But this is a basic overview of the grid system, and I will always put in there, like I put in this one, it is a 9 patch and a 4 patch, so you can see the pattern. And here is the original 1 block. I blew it up, of course, but I would make these with 3-inch blocks, which would be 18-inch squares. Or I would do them in 1 inch and have little bitty mini blocks, which would be 3 inches, 6 inches. This whole thing would be 6 inches finished. That would be me. But we all quilt differently, and there is no right or wrong. That is what I have to cannot stress enough. There is no right or wrong. Do what you like. If you like working with 2.5-inch strips, then make 2-inch squares. Nothing wrong with that. I choose 3 because that's how I was taught many, many years ago. You use 3-inch squares. But I come from a time when you cut with scissors and cornflake box templates. And with cornflake box templates, you wanted a bigger size so you didn't damage it just made cutting easier, but you didn't lose that much. I mean, honestly, there isn't much difference between a 6 and a 9-inch block, I think, or an 8-inch and a 9-inch. But that's all up to you. And if you have any questions, let me know. Please ask them in the comments. And we will see you in the group, and I will try to answer as many questions as I can. Everyone have a great week. Bye. This is Rob.